Thank you, Linda. I'm going to kick off. And we're here... Yeah, okay, I'm Sue. And introducing Simon and Jan. I think earlier on someone was talking about raising consciousness and how we become revolutionaries because of that. I think there are an awful lot of revolutionaries here in this room, many of whom who haven't been on Linda's tour, but some of us who have. And we started off being revolutionaries, actually, and I think it's because of Linda's tours with ICAHD that we have raised our consciousness because we're so informed. My particular journey, before I hand over to Simon and Jan, began in 2008. And the person who changed my life by telling me about Linda's tours is Nigel McCartney. And I'm calling him up because he's online watching us. So, Nigel, it's all down to you that my life has completely changed. And there are many, and I perhaps would like to just mention some of the people who over the years have been on Linda's tours with me. Well, I have been on the tours with them. And of course, accompanying us all the time has been Atta Jabba. So we start with him. And my friend, dear friend Liz, who's here, she and I first went in 2008. And then John, who was part of the registration team, together with Mayon. And Mayon's dear husband, Tim, is with us in spirit. In 2022, Simon, Claire, Jane, and myself, and then in 2003, Nicola, Simon, and we had two Davids as well. We've all become life-changing activists for Palestine. I can speak for everyone, and I'd like to just introduce Simon and then Jan, who will give some flesh to that experience.
So I was asked to just share my experience and why I chose to go on the ICAHD study tour. For me, my journey started in 2017. And like Simon mentioned, I went to Greenbelt, and my lights were switched on by the Amos Trust. And so I searched out how to get involved, how to educate myself. And I went on a tour with another organisation, and it was a good tour. It certainly did something for me at that point, but I came back, and I needed more. And so the day the Queen died, I came to SOAS, and Jeff was speaking, and they were talking about getting involved. And so my journey with ICAHD really started there. The reason I go, I've been twice, 2022 and 2023, is because the ICAHD tours necessarily make you uncomfortable. You hit the ground running, and you see Linda here all day, and she just never stops. And the tour is like that. It makes you experience something of a discomfort that we can never really experience, the discomfort that the Palestinians go through. But we, unlike the previous tour that was a sort of an alternative pilgrimage that I went on, this doesn't just give you an experience, but it educates. You come back engaged and activated, and knowing how to get involved at home. And then also you get given a group of people who become lifelong friends, and you journey with them, and they encourage you to push on and walk the streets with them. And so for me, the ICAHD tour is invaluable. And if you haven't been, I would go, because it is utterly relentless and you will be exhausted. But you will hear from people who don't just give you a flavour or a warm feeling that you've stood there with someone in their kitchen, but you actually feel something of their discomfort. And that activated me. So I have really, really appreciated those 2 tours that I've been on. Jan?
Thank you, Jan.
Is that working? Yeah. Right. Before joining the tour, I was a political activist already on many, many fronts. And there weren't enough nights of the week for all the different campaign meetings I wanted to go to. I was active in the Labour Party for my sins, climate activism, Extinction Rebellion, Keep Our NHS Public, challenging charges for migrants, and various solidarity campaigns like Cuba Solidarity, Venezuela Solidarity, and Palestine Solidarity. I was a member of all those things. They just weren't, but Palestine kept falling off the bottom of my list. It often clashed with Labour Party meetings. And I'd go on the demos, I'd go to the occasional meeting, but I wasn't doing any campaigning really for Palestine. But the study tour changed all that, and it was life-changing for me in that it brought alive the history of what Israeli settler colonialism meant and its impact on every part of daily Palestinian life, caging them in, preventing them from enjoying so many of the freedoms which we all take for granted. I'd known theoretically what the occupation meant. I knew it was oppressive and restrictive for Palestinians, but the tour made it come alive in that I could no longer ignore it. And I'll just mention a few things that really brought it home to me. First was visiting Checkpoint 300 in Bethlehem, near our hotel, and watching workers queue up early in the morning. They'd set off at 3 o'clock, waiting around, never knowing whether the gates were going to be open or when they were going to be open to enable them to go to work through the checkpoint. Hearing from students in Bethlehem of how they could never reliably get to lectures on time if they were coming from Jerusalem because of the checkpoint and its erratic opening hours. Meeting a young man at Aida refugee camp in Bethlehem who had never been allowed to visit Jerusalem, 10 miles away, where his family came from. And I also remember him saying, and I've never been to the seaside. When the seaside isn't far away, everything's so close in Palestine. Gaza isn't far away, but it's that total hemming in, constraint. And then I remember in Hebron going through a checkpoint myself as part of the group and being stopped by a young Israeli arrogant soldier who ordered me to take my bracelet off. I just bought it before from a kid who was selling it on the street, and all it had was Palestine on it and a Palestinian flag. I'm not letting you through till you take that off. And he just shouted at me. And that's nothing compared with what Palestinians go through. But the pettiness, the arrogance, I just got a little flavour, many times less than any Palestinians would get. And so I removed it in order to get through the checkpoint. So after the tour, I was really motivated. I was geared up to do loads of things. It made me write, give talks, and be more actively involved in campaigning for the Palestinian struggle. So I really felt there was no point in having done the tour. I had a duty to all those people we'd met. I had a duty to amplify their voices and to let their voices be heard in as many networks as possible. And when I went back to my flat, I remember the privilege of going back to my home, which wasn't demolished, had not been raided. I looked out of my kitchen window onto greenery, and I could go to sleep at night without the fear of a night raid. And I also am a very organised person. I really need to know when I'm going to get somewhere for a meeting, and I expect life to be predictable. And one of the things that really bugged me was the mental torment caused by unpredictability to people in Palestine. I mean, I'm a real nerd. I look at TfL Journey Planner to make sure I get here on time. I get everywhere early, but that's part of organising a life and getting as many things fitted into a day as possible, and that's what you can't do if you're a Palestinian. Anyway, after getting back, the first thing I did was type up the many notes I took as we walked around all these different sites. and checked it with Linda to make sure I'd not got things wrong. Thank you, Linda, for bothering to check my work. And it was 28 A4 pages. That was even missing out the story of Atajaba, because I knew it was all recorded already. And then I used that to write an article for the Morning Star. Hands up, anybody who's ever read the Morning Star? Oh, phew! I do urge you to buy it. It is the only socialist daily paper. And you learn about struggle and resistance in a way you don't from the rest of the media. Anyway, I didn't know who else to write for. I do get the Morning Star in hard copy form every day. So I wrote it. I've never written for the Morning Star before. I sent it off. I got my work checked by Linda again. She suggested, since it was just before Christmas, to use the title of Bethlehem as a way of hanging it onto the season. And within a few weeks, it was published, a double-page spread with photographs photographs of a night raid, and it was entitled Calibrated Chaos and Cruelty in the Little Town of Bethlehem. So it had a little Christmas touch. And it came out the week before Christmas Day. So that gave me something to share with all my friends and contacts. So I sent it to 100 people, 100 friends, family, networks, and got feedback from all. I made them read it, somehow. And I also sent it to the people in Palestine and Israel that we'd met, to let them know that their voices were being heard. And I asked all the groups I belonged to send it out on their mailing lists, and they did that as well. So it is a way of sending ripples and not keeping it all locked up inside me. Okay, 5 minutes. I was only meant to have 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I've nearly finished. So having got the article published, I contacted every group that I was a member of and asked them if I could speak to them about my visit. And this included 3 Labour Party branches, a choir I used to sing in, my trade union branch, Lambeth Unite Community, New Beacon Bookshop, and my local PSC group. I thought I'd just be telling them everything they knew, and I was a bit embarrassed because everybody'd been dozens of times to Palestine. But I still felt I owed it to what I'd seen and experienced to share it as a fresh experience. And I prepared several different talks, one on why you should go on the study tour. And I did tempt 4 people to sign up, but then this tour was cancelled. I was sorry about that. Because of COVID, yeah. And then the second one was how the Nakba is continuing today in the Jericho Valley and Bedouins. And our trip with Zokrot in Jaffa. The third one was the impact of the occupation on the environment, which is an angle I'd never thought about, but really was an interesting extra angle to come out on the tour. And finally, about trade unions in Israel and Palestine. So that was my kind of advocacy role. And then finally to the action. I decided to prioritize Palestinian actions over all others, and ended up being elected co-chair of my local PSC group in April 2023, since when we've organised weekly stalls in different places in Lambeth. We've picketed Barclays Bank hundreds of times, urging people to boycott it. The branch is closed, but not due to us. We've held public meetings, we've shown films about Palestine, lobbied and petitioned Lambeth Council to divest their pension funds, and taken our banner on all the 20 national marches. I'm so sorry that the November tour has had to be cancelled due to the only airlines flying to Tel Aviv being Israeli, but I would urge you all, if you've not been, to seriously consider going on the next possible tour. Thanks very much.